Well, thought I would give people something a little different while I contemplate ending my existence for the 100th time this year. This is Grand Theft Auto 3, the definitive edition on PC. And because I'm King Autismo Grande, I do not play GTA to enjoy GTA. I play GTA to achieve 100% completion and finish all the annoying side quests, which means I'm stuck doing taxi missions during my first few hours with the game. Perfectionism wreaks havoc on every aspect of my daily life, and I will stop at nothing to unlock the Hot Rod Taxi, which you get for completing 100 fares in this crazy taxi-style minigame. On a much lighter note, GTA 3 in particular is one of the defining games of my childhood. It's actually the first game I ever pirated back when I was 10 years old. Back in the early 2000s, you had a program called LimeWire, which a lot of kids used to download like movies and music, mostly music. And the rival to LimeWire was a program called Kazaa, and it basically functioned the same way. And I was able to get GTA 3 off of it in what would be the equivalent of a Fit Girl repack. The version I pirated didn't come with any of the radio stations, which kept file size down significantly, but for all intents and purposes, the rest of the game was intact. Now, the reason I had to pirate it in the first place, which is going to be something a lot of younger viewers who stumble across this video are not going to quite understand, is that GTA 3 launched at the height of the moral panic when it came to violent video games, and a lot of otherwise normal parents were convinced, mostly through the media, that if your kid played GTA 3, he would turn into a violent sociopath, he'd become a bully at school, he'd want to hurt animals, he'd want to shoot up the place, he'd carry out his own Columbine-style shooting. It was really, really weird. And not only did my parents kind of buy into this, but a lot of my friends' parents also bought into it. So you just weren't going to get GTA for your birthday or like for Christmas or anything like that. And even upon like showing my dad that like, hey look, I learned how to pirate video games. I'm 10 years old. This is really the full version of GTA that I'm playing right now on our PC. I got a pretty stern talking to about like, hey, if we see you like killing too many people in the game or like murdering, a shitload of cops or like, playing missions where they reference prostitution or like drugs or just like adult themes in general, we're going to make you uninstall the game. And the funny part about all this is that the moral panic really wasn't justified. GTA 3, Vice City, and San Andreas are really just more detailed versions of a game called Midtown Madness, which eventually turned into the Midnight Club series. GTA at its core is a racing game with just a lot of on-foot sections, and the missions really are nothing to write home about. The gameplay is really simple. It's usually just drive here and kill X, but there's infinitely more driving in these games than there is killing people. This is especially apparent when you start factoring in all the different side missions available in these games. I mean, you've got taxi missions, you've got firefighter missions, you've got ambulance driver missions, you've got street racing in this game, you've got like rock climbing challenges. In later games like Vice City and San Andreas, you've got like motorbike challenges, you've got like the driving and flight school. In this game, you can fly like the dodo plane and just like mess around with that. For a game that's primarily about becoming a crime lord and just doing shady things for like various criminal organizations, it seemed like they were trying to make a racing game because there's a lot of racing. I actually spent a lot of my childhood playing GTA, which is why I didn't really get into GTA 5 like at all. Because not only did I play GTA 3 on the PC back basically when it was brand new, I got into multi-theft auto with my friend, which was like the precursor to San Andreas multiplayer, and you really couldn't do a whole lot. You could just mess around on one of the 3 islands and, shoot each other, or, just drive around in cars and just kind of explore the map, which wasn't a lot at the time, obviously. This game's quite dated now, but back in 2002 or 2003, this was like all me and my buddy did after school. And then in middle school, when I had an Xbox, I got the original trilogy for that console. They released a nice bundle with all 3 games, and within the span of about 3 months, I think in 8th grade, I 100%ed all 3 of them back to back. And this was just before YouTube was, becoming a big thing. So a lot of the 100% guides were all just text format, and you'd have to infer where like hidden packages were by like some dude on Game FAQ's, 1 or 2 sentence description, which was a giant pain in the ass. And it kind of burned me out on the GTA franchise as a whole. It's probably the only game franchise that has burned me out, period, for the entire time I've been playing video games, which is, let's be honest, a large chunk of my life. I did purchase GTA 4 at launch. I completed that to 100%. I completed the Lost and Damned expansion to 100%. But after that, I never touched another GTA game. I never played the Battle of Gaytoni and never played 5. The formula has basically been unchanged since the series entered the 3D era with GTA 3. and you can only do the same side missions and collect the same hidden packages over and over again across different games before it just gets really repetitive. So, as a veteran of the series who's completed 5 of these games to 100% status, as someone who grew up with these games and played them when they were relatively brand new or only just a few months old, how does the Definitive Edition, which just came out a few days ago, hold up? It's actually a pile of shit. A lot gets lost in translation between capturing a clip on Shadowplay, putting it into Vegas, rendering it, and then uploading it to YouTube. But the frame rate takes a dive anytime you're not driving in clear midday conditions. So, like, if you're driving at night in a heavily lit place, if you're driving in the rain, if there's standing water, the frame rate dives to like 35 or 40 FPS. That's not a joke, and I've seen a lot of different places talk about it. Yep, that's a thing. The performance is honestly awful. It's also worth noting the Unreal Engine has actually overwritten a lot of unique art style choices found in these games. Driving around at night, there's no blue tint, there's no film grain, there's no motion blur, there's no distance fog, which kind of helped give these really small maps a sense of scale. Instead, most of the game looks like a lifeless student project. The character models were all given redesigns, but now they all look like they're something out of Fortnite or The Sims, which just looks really weird. Yes, there are a bunch of songs cut from the various radio stations in the games, but it's arguably not the most pressing issue. To appease losers on Twitter, there's been a ton of cut mission dialogue, which is weird because GTA has typically existed to offend people. A lot of costumes and set dressings have been altered as well. And while GSG, the team behind this release, claimed the texture enhancements were done using an AI upscaler, this to some extent seems to have been a lie. A lot of buildings or billboards with intentional puns for names have completely redesigned logos with a ton, and I mean a ton, of spelling mistakes. This is not how AI upscaling works, and people have already gone to the credits and found that a team in India is responsible for a lot of the 2D artwork. So thanks to this weird push to like fetishize diversity and make use of elaborate outsourcing programs, we now have one of the most important video games of all time loaded with spelling errors that were not in the original game. And because all 3 of the games in this Definitive Edition pack are so expansive and like every little storefront has its own individual name across multiple cities and regions, people are finding like new spelling errors every 30 minutes. One asset that hasn't been affected by the outsourcing team is the Borg 9 taxi, which you unlock for completing 100 taxi fares. It is just a recolored version of the traditional cabbie, albeit with spikes on the front, and oh man, is this thing fast. But I really don't have any desire to drive a taxi ever again in this game, because 100 fares is a lot. The entire process took me about an hour. I split this over 2 main trips, so we are just going to snatch one from the cabbie dealer and stash it in the garage for convenience. As you can see by the stuff in my hideout and the cash value I've got going on, I did do the hidden packages first and foremost. It's easy to glitch to the other islands, all the old glitches work. But yeah, for the time being, I would really hold off on this game. It really doesn't have a lot going for it. You're best just playing the originals, to be honest with you.